But I wanted to introduce our coffee and chats today with Cassandra Spearman, who is the founder of Tea Snob. And as you can see, I am outside today. It is not warm enough to be outside, but I desperately need the sunshine. So I am going to soak up as much vitamin D as I can. High today is going to be 65. So if you see pictures of me later and I'm just in a tank top and shorts, don't judge. I'm trying to live my best spring break life right now in Western Pennsylvania. So I'm so happy to have Cassandra join us. She has just started a new company. So we're going to talk about Tea Snob, and we're going to talk about a few other topics that are near and dear to both of our hearts. So Cassandra, good morning.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for inviting me.
I am wonderful. Thank you for joining in and being a part of this. And I know our chat is normally called Coffee and Chat, but I should let you know that I'm also a tea drinker. So I have my tea. I'm ready for it. And tell us,
Great. I have mine as
so what blend of yours do you have?
I have me time. It is my favorite. It is the first blend that I curated. It has peppermint, spearmint, lavender, and eucalyptus in it.
Ooh,
And it helps with stress, anxiety, relaxation. It boosts your energy. It gives you mental clarity. And it also boosts your energy and immune system.
that sounds lovely. I grew up in a family that we were all tea drinkers. My grandfather was the only person who drank coffee. And I think from just working in the mills, he drank black sludge, like it was thick and heavy and dark, and he didn't put anything in it. And a pot could last him 2 or 3 days. He wasn't. It was just kind of like a morning ritual, like my cup of coffee and in the newspaper. And so I didn't have my first cup of coffee until I got to graduate school. I'd been a tea drinker, and I'm a purist. I don't put honey, milk, sugar, tea, lemon. I don't put any of that into my tea. I just allow the flavor to kind of take over. And so that's how everyone else in our family is. And so when I was introduced to coffee, I was like, oh, wait, hold on a second. This tastes awful. So I've now graduated. I've become an adult, and I don't put sugar in my coffee. I just put a little bit of creamer. But one of my work colleagues, Marcos, tells me that I'm a blasphemous. He's from Argentina and believes that you should have like good, rich black coffee. Like that's the way it was intended to be drank. So if he sees me on the Zoom chats and he sees like iced coffee, which also iced coffee is blasphemy, and it's like the color of my skin, he just shakes his head in disapproval. Like, what are you doing? So I have found as of late that probably just because of the pandemic and as much coffee as I consumed, I'm like over it. Like it doesn't have a taste. I don't like it. And so for the last 3 weeks, I've been like chugging tea.
Yeah. Well, you know what? One of the reasons why I've always liked tea. Okay. But one of the reasons why I started Tea Snob is because I do not put sugar in my tea. And if you're familiar with polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS,
Sorry.
sugar is really bad for a woman with PCOS who has insulin resistance. So the flavor of tea to me, if you have to put sugar in your tea, I always say it's trash. It's just trash because tea has their own flavor. It has this vibe. It's relaxing and it carries you somewhere else, like you're on a vacation. To me, the flavor, the smell, it's all calming and relaxing. But I do from time to time add a little honey. But honey does have some benefits to it, so I go with that.
And sorry about the deep bark. The neighborhood watchdog saw a really nice mom walking down the street, and he had to make sure that she wasn't going to burglarize our house. And so lay down, Tag. So I apologize for that. But yes, I agree. I really enjoy the different notes of tea. So being able to have that initial taste, that lingering one, and then that after note. I loved going to Arnold's Tea on the north side. Verna Arnold was the founder, and she really became kind of like a master at tea, knowing what blends, and she always did loose leaf. She would bag her own. She could smell them. She knew steeping times for 30 different blends because every blend has its own steep time, how long it needs to be, its temperature. And I remember sitting there one day and I was pregnant. I was desperately sick. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't even look at someone sometimes. And she brought a tea over to me, and I don't like ginger. And it had ginger. And I'm like, no, Miss Arnold, I can't do this. This will make me very sick. I don't like it. She goes, your body needs it. You're fine. Take it down. And so she sat there with me while I sipped it to make sure I drank it. And I still don't particularly like ginger tea, but she was absolutely right. Like that was exactly what my body needed at that exact moment. And so tell us how you came into starting your company, because it's brand new, isn't it?
It's brand spanking new, like 3 weeks new. So I have PCOS again. And what happened, I was having a lot of pain back in November. And I was having a hard time getting out of bed every day. It was taking a toll mentally. I had went to the doctors. They could not find anything wrong with me as far as why I was having the pain, the joint pain that was keeping me in bed. So what I did was I came home because of course I'm a tea snob, and I went into the kitchen and I just threw some nettle and peppermint and lavender together and sat by the window and sipped it. And yeah, really just gathered my thoughts with the tea. And I did that for a few days and noticed that I was feeling better. Um, and then I just curated another tea, right? And so for about 2 weeks, I sat with those two blends, and pretty soon I noticed like I didn't have any joint pain. I had mental clarity. I can think, I can get up. I had more energy to move around. I even started going to the gym because I just had enough energy at that point in time to move. And one of my friends kept saying, "You're not complaining." I said, "I know." And he said, "What are you doing differently?" And I said, "I'm really not sure." And at the time, I didn't because I'm a drinker, so I drink tea all the time. The only difference was I was not drinking tea bag tea, and I was drinking the loose leaf tea. So it turns out after some research that the loose leaf tea hits differently. It has so many more benefits. Herbal tea has so many more benefits for you. So the power of the plant really is what did it for me. And then I just started looking for a tea grower, honestly, to curate the teas. And I put some blends together, found a local tea grower, asked her to put some things together for me. And I was literally tasting different teas that I had curated myself um, for about a month. And at one point, I was getting headaches and things like that. And so I looked and I researched and seen, what herbs stop headache. And then I mixed some of those blends together, tasted it, asked her, "Hey, make me a big blend of that and send it to me so I can see how it does." I was having trouble sleeping, as you know, when with PCS do. We have a lot of disruptions, and I said, "I need something to sleep." I looked up those herbs, I kind of mixed them up, and then asked her, "Make me a batch of that as well." And before long, listen, I had energy, clarity, my joint pain was gone, I was sleeping. I was like, "What? This is for real." And then I thought about it. I said, "You know what? There are 5 million women suffering with PCOS. Maybe I can help them because I know I feel a whole heck of a lot better without the pills that were prescribed to me." And pretty much that's how I started.
What a beautiful startup story, right? Like what a form of self-care. Tea has always been a form of self-care, I think, for millennia for a lot of us, right? We feel soothed and comforted by it, but knowing that you started this company out of need for yourself and wanted to share that with others. So, for those of you who are on that are not sure what PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it affects women, and it's where cysts grow on your ovaries and they can get rather large, and then they burst. And so, really terrible bleeding, awful periods, cramping, pain, joint pain, headaches, sleep disruption. And one of the biggest ones is insulin resistant. So many women who have PCOS are borderline diabetic due to the fact that their body can't regulate insulin. So at my heaviest, I found out that the reason why I was so heavy and crying because didn't matter what I ate, didn't matter how much I worked out, like I was gaining weight. And it was because
Absolutely.
I had PCOS and it was really bad. And they did all these tests on my thyroid. They thought there could have been cancer. And here, what it was is that my body was insulin resistant. So whether I ate a organic yogurt or a Twix bar, my body treated it like Twix and processed everything like sugar. So I couldn't get my body to regulate. So I would get massive sugar highs and massive lows and shake and feel really uncomfortable, or you'd have that brain fog because your body is just not processing what's going on. Add on top of that, coupled with the joint pain and the tiredness and then hormones, so you can literally end up in rage. If you know a woman who has symptoms like that, they're not crazy, they're not a complainer, they probably have PCOS and it's just not been
Right.
diagnosed properly. It, as she mentioned, there's millions of women who have it, but to get a diagnosis from it takes really you kind of like on your doctor's neck to say no, like we need to do blood work, we need to do panels, I need you to do all of this to see. And one of the medicines she was probably referring to is metformin. It helps regulate your insulin and your insulin resistance, but it makes you horrifically ill, right? So, like they say, you have to eat really healthy with it, and it's absolutely true. But again, if your body's not processing your sugar right, say you have a strawberry, which again has sugars, natural sugars, that might make you really sick, and your blood sugar can skyrocket, and you shake. I ended up in an episode one time where I like fell out of my chair and like fainted. I got so sick. They didn't know what was wrong. Thankfully, my boss at the time knew and they were able to kind of get me together. But that feeling of those highs and lows and dips all day is exhausting to your body. So, thank you for doing something for you, but something that could benefit potentially so many other women.
You're welcome. And another thing, people don't know that PCOS not only it leads to diabetes, liver disease, heart disease, inflammation, infertility issues. And so some people are like, "Can I drink your tea?" Absolutely. It almost helps with everything because having PCOS, we're at risk for everything. A woman who has PCOS, so you get PCOS in your childbearing age, right? So you know that by the time you get a period, it's always there. The thing is it takes a long time to be diagnosed because medical professionals aren't educated on it, and because there's so many symptoms that overlap other diseases. So you could be diagnosed with diabetes, but you really have PCOS. You could be having a thyroid issue, but you really have PCOS. So if you're wondering why, again, like your person, it feels like you have a personality disorder, you don't feel like getting out of bed, depression, anxiety, all those things, and you're like, all I have is a thyroid disorder. More than likely, you have PCOS, right? And you have not been diagnosed. PCOS is the most undiagnosed, underserved, and underfunded condition affecting women's health. And the fact that they are still giving out contraceptives, metformin, and other drugs that have absolutely nothing to do with PCOS is what then turned me, right? Because I was given birth control pills. I was given progesterone pills. I was given metformin. I'm like, listen, I'm 40 years old. I don't want to take a birth control pill every day. I'm not a pill popper and I can't remember to do that, honestly.
It's
So I needed
for
something.
me, that was the same cocktail that I've had since I was in college. And so with
Listen, they've given
irregular
that
periods,
cocktail.
yeah, with irregular periods, they would be like, "Oh, we'll take progesterone," and then it would come regular, and they're like, "Okay, now birth control." Okay, that's not working, and because I suffer from migraines, birth control exasperates it. So I was going back to the doctor every 3 or 4 months, and this is before you really got the free yearly checkup. So I was paying out of pocket to go to my gynecologist like every almost every quarter because it was like this medicine's not right. So we had to do low dose estrogen, high progesterone, and then that equals something else. And then we had to do this and we had to do that. And finally, it got to the point where I found the right gynecologist. It was actually her nurse assistant, like her physician's assistant. She was this old lady. She was rough. She was rugged. She came in with like a walker. I'm not even lying, like with a walker. And she was like, "Tell me all your problems." And she asked me questions. I'm like, "What does this have to do with my irregular periods?" She goes, "Everything." And she found the right birth control for me, and it worked really, really well until I got pregnant and I had my baby. So apparently it didn't work really well in some places. um, but afterwards, I got the Nexplanon in my arm. It's the arm implant. I've not had any issues. It regulates my hormones very well. But I have been having other PCOS issues as of late, which compound with the pandemic. You know, you're already anxious and depressed, you're eating too much, and then your body kind of gets back into um, some of those behaviors, and then your body snaps back into, you know, overmaking and undermaking. So when I said I needed the vitamin D, like I needed to be outside. I just need to have the sunshine on my face to feel a little bit better, that we're not kind of back into that winter doldrums.
I said the same thing to one of my friends yesterday. Like I went outside for a walk with the dog and all that. And I said, you know what? My brain needed that weather, the sunshine, the 60 degrees. My brain needed it to function, honestly. Um, and that's another thing I think that people don't get it. Like, because you have a hormonal imbalance, it affects how you think, how you act, how you see the world, how you respond to other people, because there's some days where we're just in a fog and, we can go from 0 to 100 flat in no time, just with a little question that's normal to someone else, just because our hormones are off balance, you
And
know.
it's so frustrating too, because you feel like you have to consistently explain yourself, or you just get tired of it and you're like, I'm not going to let anybody know that, like, I'm only 34, and I have arthritis only in my leg because I broke a leg in college. Compound that with the
Okay.
PCOS and the joint pain, there's some days where I probably do feel like a 65-year-old. Like it hurts, I ache, I'm inflamed, I can feel the inflammation in my hands and in my legs, and trying to find different therapies to help with that, because your body is working against you. And you know, people say, well, start working out, eat better, do this. Well, even doing those things, like I took a walk with my dog yesterday and it felt great, but like my ankle hurts today. And so I think people have a one-off idea of, you know, oh, you have this, then do this and you won't have this anymore. Well, when your body is absolutely working against you, and people should know, PCOS doesn't go away. It's not one of those things that's like, oh, well, if you do this or this, then, oh, you don't have it. Some of the symptoms might go away, some of them might be lesser, but you're never not going to have PCOS. It'll always be with you.
Right. Absolutely. And, that's another reason why I wanted an alternative to pills, because, after taking a certain medication for so long, our body does not respond to it. It's just like when they give you an antibiotic. So if you're always taking penicillin, pretty soon you can't take penicillin. Then they want to give you amoxicillin. Then they want to give you something else. So, after taking these pills for so long, they don't work with your body,
No.
where the herbs in the herbal tea is not only is it more gentler for your body, but it's long lasting over time. And since PCOS does not go away, you know that you always have something that is helping you heal and reduce your symptoms, whether it's PCOS, whether it's diabetes, whether it's liver disease, whether it's heart disease, inflammation, anxiety, you can't sleep, um, even food cravings. Like I went on a binge over the week, potato chips and blueberry cake, just because I was triggered by something. And I was like, geez, I haven't done this in so long. And then you get that taste and just like, and I literally texted my trainer and said, I just want you to know, like, I'm binging on chips and blueberry cake. I'm like, someone should know. But what I think a lot of people don't understand is just even the little things in life that may stress you out. It stresses us out, but it's at a greater level
Yeah.
because we have PCOS. So even certain workouts will stress us out and make us gain weight. Our bodies just don't work like that. We're constantly fighting,
It's constantly
constantly
fighting,
fighting.
and you know, there's the adage that, like, you know, one size doesn't fit all. And I found for me, strength training is what worked best for my body. So like cardio, I didn't see very many results, right? I would do some cardio, but that's not really where I saw the weight kind of coming off or me feeling better. It was really the strength training, and that I could take at my own pace. I could push myself very differently than I could just running or jogging or something of that nature. For other people, it's very, very different, right? They want to be a runner. We have a super walkable neighborhood, right? Great open streets, sidewalks, etc. So we see people at our house all day. And if you live in my house, you hear my dog all day barking because there's people running and they're walking and they're jogging. And it's just this nice kind of like activity people do. And I've thought all through the pandemic, I want to do that. Like they look like they're having just really that release, right? So I get there and I get about 4 houses down and I'm like, hell no. Like I'm just not physically built for this. I'm not mentally built for this. I can walk. We have a ton of hills. I mean, big, massive hills. And I could do those hills and it's nobody's business. But to jog like a half of that mile or jog the 3 blocks, oh, I'd be down at the bottom of the hill, like, you know, breathing, calling my mom, like, can you come pick me up? So even knowing the ways that your body works, and this is if you even don't have PCOS, but like understanding. So I'm not a breakfast person. So fasting for me would probably make a lot of sense when it came to like a diet kind of format, because I really do just prefer to have like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea in the morning and not eat. I want breakfast like at 10ish, and then I want to have lunch at like 1, and then I want to do dinner at like 5 or 6. And that's just been me. That's been me since I was a little girl. I didn't really like breakfast in college. You know, I'd skip it because I really didn't enjoy it. Whereas there's other people where they can't function unless they've had 3 courses for breakfast, they eat no lunch, and then they have a light dinner. Again, your body is very different. Everything is different for someone else. And so when you're on the journey of figuring out whether it's with PCOS or not, what's best for your body, you have to kind of just do an intake and say, how do I feel? So this morning I had yogurt, and that's only since because I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. So I'm like, okay, my body feels like it's 10 a.m. So I had yogurt and I had a cup of tea, but I'm a snacker. I'm a grazer. So I don't like to sit down and eat a big meal. And I've never been that way. I like to graze. And so what happens when you're a grazer is that your body actually always thinks it has to break food down. So it never has a chance to like break it down past that point, like if you take the breaks between your meals. And so like trying to understand fasting, I'm like, oh yeah, so no, like I have to eat and then just nothing again. And so, you know, it's adjusting to that. So you mentioned 3 of your flavors for teas. What additional products do you have?
Um, so I'm basically have tea, but I do have some apparel and accessories. So I have one shirt that says PCOS. The condition may be invisible, but I am not. And then I have a tea snob shirt, which is the definition of a tea snob. I have hats. We have masks. We have bags that you carry. We have tote bags. And our latest is we have a snob bottle, which is a tea infuser slash water bottle, which is great because you can take it anywhere. Yesterday, I went out, I put my tea in it, keeps it hot, keeps your beverages cold up to 24 hours at that same temperature. And it's just great. I used it this morning. I took it to the gym, I put water in it, and I came home and I put tea in it to keep my tea hot the rest of the day. But you mentioned something earlier when you said it's not a one size fit all. And that's one of the things that I talk about is that it's not a one size fit all and it affects every woman differently, PCOS that is. And so therefore, you know, I may have 3 symptoms, you might have 10 symptoms. And to think that we're supposed to be treated the same with the same medications is, it just is not a feasible thing, right? And that's the issue. You know, that pill, the pills that they give us are one dimensional, where the herbs in my tea are not one dimensional. The more you combine them, they're synergistic. So the more that you combine them, the more beneficial they become to you and your health and the symptoms that you have. And so that's one thing that the medical professionals have not really been able to hone in on, right? They're treating one symptom, and the main symptom that they are treating is infertility, right? They're not treating all the other symptoms that come with it. They're not treating your mental health. They're not treating your weight gain. They're not treating your anxiety. They're not treating your sleeping disorder. They're not treating your diabetes per se, or your thyroid issues, or your endocrine issues, your metabolic issues. They're not putting those all together. Your inflammation. They're not treating that. If you give me birth control, you are leaving me wide open for everything else. And birth control only does one thing, right? And so a woman who's already having infertility issues, you know, if you have birth control in your system, it takes a while for it to leave your system and for you to become pregnant. So not only do I have, you know, tea for mental clarity, inflammation, diabetes, but I have fertility tea as well, right? Because you have to cleanse your liver, you have to clean your reproductive system. And so it's both for males and females, because why? We're in it together if you're trying to have a child, right? And it's not always the woman who has the child. So those herbs, not only do they boost libido, but they also help the male as well. Okay, boost his
That's so
metabolism,
fantastic
energy.
it's so fantastic to even keep the conversation of infertility on both ends, because I know there's just shame, and that if you feel like it's a secret battle, like you're not supposed to talk about it, it's like a dirty
Absolutely.
word. I can't do the thing that I was made to do. And as women, I've heard a ton of women say, I can't have children, like the one thing I was meant to do I can't do. And that's only society telling us, right? So we've completely devalued the person. And there are women who desperately want children, and they're having issues, and then they get stressed out about it, and then they're bought, and then people say, oh, the minute you stop stressing it's going to happen. Well, then how do they stop stressing, right? Like, how do they get to that point? Because that hangs over their head so consistently. And my doctor had the same conversation with me, because I was on the birth control pills, I was on metformin, I was on a diet plan, I was on anxiety medicine, I was on everything that you were saying. And the only reason why I got off all of it is because I lost my health insurance. And so I couldn't get my prescriptions updated, and it ended up working out. But my doctor told me, the one that helped me with kind of regaining control of the PCOS, when you want children, like we're going to have to create a plan for this, right? Like when you want them, like we're going to have to create a timeline, because there's things you're going to have to start doing, things you're going to have to stop starting. Like, fertility treatments are probably going to be the only way you'll get pregnant. Surprise, it wasn't, but for a lot of women, I know that that's the case. So then now you have to actually map out your capability to be able to become fertile, and it's being able to check your temperatures and being able to do all these things. So now you've added almost a third or fourth job to many women who are wanting to get pregnant, because they have to do all of this stuff and plan out. And well, if you get married and then you want to have kids, 2 years out you want to do this, and a year out you want to do this, and when you start trying you want to do this, and you need to do this and check this, and it's just like, who I have to have a whole entire calendar for fertility. It's ridiculous to require that for someone.
Yeah, and I think what they're not saying sometimes is that, you know, your liver is one of the things that's connected to your hormones and your reproductive system. So just detoxing your liver um, regularly could be something that helps you. You know, we have that mucus congestion that the teas, the fertility teas and the herbs can help clean you out and detox you. And no one talks about that, of course, because it's not,
It's not
you
sexy.
know, it's not a pill.
You know, we're not supposed
Yeah, it's
to do
not a
that.
pill.
And
But, you know,
just like
if you can
PCOS,
drink, if you can drink a cup of tea or 3 cups of tea a day and get yourself detoxed and cleaned out and those types of things, you better your chances of getting your bundle of joy as well. Um, and not just that, having a clean system, you know, detoxing and making sure that your immune system is good. Another thing with the herbal tea, you know, it's they're antioxidants, they're active antibacterial. So, and antiviral as well. So what that does is it just wards off a lot of things that actually come your way, no
Mhm.
matter what you have, even if it's high blood pressure, your glucose levels are high, all those things. It helps ease those symptoms.
No, I agree with that. And one of the things that you've mentioned, and I love that we're bringing attention to this because whether you're female or male, if you suffer or you don't, you probably have a friend or a family member who is very silently going through this, very silently dealing with the issues. I have cousins who have it. I have some very good friends who have PCOS. Quite a few people who are having difficulty with fertility and just trying to manage all of that. But with many female issues, we don't talk about it because it's like faux pas, right? It's we're not supposed to. So like cervical cancer and ovarian cancer. Yes, breast cancer is awful and we should pay attention to it, but we should pay just as much attention to ovarian cancer and cervical cancer, because even though cervical cancer is the slowest moving cancer, it's invasive. So once it gets to stage 2, it's a death note, right? You're not going to be able to do radiation, you're not be able to do chemo. So yes, it's slow moving. So I say all that to say that, you know, going and getting your annual exam, it's a pain in the ass, women. It's uncomfortable. Men will never understand how it's invasive. It's intruding. It's I don't know, you feel icky afterwards. Even after you've had kids, you still feel icky with it, but it's absolutely important to do it. So like I schedule mine out. I get mine right around my birthday. It's my birthday present to myself. And so I get mine done in June, and the minute that I'm finished, I before I leave, I book mine for the next year. So that way it's done, it's on the books, etc. Because I've had stage 1 cervical cancer twice, I actually have to get an pap smear twice a year. So I always make mine for every, you know, my every 6 months. And I'm really diligent on it. I map out my day, I make sure it's on the calendar. The last one, they had to move it twice. And I finally said, like, you're not moving it again. Pandemic or not, like, I'm just as important. So you can fit me in. And so, you know, if I wouldn't push and I let it go, there's a reason why I have to go twice a year. We want to monitor, we want to make sure I'm safe and I'm, you know, healthy. Same for other people. When we put off doing these tests because we're nervous of what it means or uncomfortable with what it feels like, the detriment's only to us, right? Like that's part of your self-care. Nobody else can do self-care for you. You have to be selfish with it. So making the time, making the journey, under our healthcare kind of, if you want to call it the Obama plan or whatever it's called now, or it's been undone, done and redone so many times, women do get a free annual exam. If you have insurance or you do not have insurance, you can go and you can get an exam for free. And so even if you feel like, oh, well, I don't have insurance, it's not going to get covered, da 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 da, they uncover some problems. How am I going to pay for that? Cross that bridge when you get there, but you get a free exam, which is absolutely fantastic and amazing for women across the board, poor, rich, any race, any background, to be able to get that done to ensure that your health, your fertility, your mental health, all of that is good.
Absolutely. And another thing why it's so important is knowing yourself and being aware of your body. One of the things that I did not like also about the pills is, you know, when you get pills, they numb something within you. So that awareness is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to feel what's going on with you. You need to be able to feel your emotions and feelings so that you can report those things to your doctor. If you're having any of these symptoms, you need to be able to report how you feel to your doctor. And don't be so quick to take a pill. Like the pill should not, any type of pill should not be our first or only option when it comes to our health. There are so many other things out there that can help you, but it starts with knowing yourself, knowing your body, knowing how you're feeling, whether it's up or down, whether you're having some type of pain, whether something is different in your mental capacity or physically. You need to be aware of that so that you can tell your doctor. I know that having PCOS, I went to the doctor so many times and switched doctors 3 times before I found a doctor
Mhm.
who said, let me take some blood tests, right? And one of the things that she recognized, and one of the things that is quite embarrassing, is having facial hair,
Mhm.
right? But she noticed that I had some facial hair on my chin, and that's one of the telltale signs of PCOS, right? Having that coarse hair. And what's embarrassing sometimes is I actually have a razor in my car because I don't always remember to shave my chin, right? If I'm going somewhere. And, there's some women who have beards and mustaches that you just can't get rid of that. But you need to know that that is a symptom of having
Mhm.
PCOS. Having weight in your midsection and not being able to get rid of it, um, constantly looking like you're pregnant when you're not, that's a symptom of PCOS. Um, and like you said, the exercising and all those things, that's a strain to our body where it not may not be a strain to someone else's. I remember doing Weight Watchers back in the day with my cousin. We were doing meal prep and plans. We were eating the same thing, doing the same exercises. She literally lost 25 pounds. I literally gained an extra 15 on the same exact stuff. Um, just because I have PCOS and it's insulin resistance. And that's one of the things that really, really made me take a look at and go to the doctor and say, something's not right. What's working for everybody else is just not working for me. I'm fighting hard, you know, to lose the weight. And so, and it just doesn't happen like that for us. It's
Yeah.
not the easiest thing in the world.
It's
And
not.
there are so many embarrassing factors to it.
Mhm.
And so it strips your femininity and fertility from you. Women, they may not notice it or know it, but if you have a lot of miscarriages or you're prone to miscarrying, you probably have PCOS, unfortunately. And because it's so underserved and undiagnosed, um, you just may not know. So that's an issue that you need to push with your doctor, that you want to have blood tests and that you want to be checked out to make sure that you don't have cysts on your ovaries. But
Yeah.
another thing too, every woman does not have cysts on their ovaries. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Every woman with PCOS is not heavy. There are skinny women with PCOS, which then in turn makes it even harder for them to convince their doctor that
Mhm.
they have it, you know. So
Yeah,
just be
I
mindful.
understand.
If you know your body and something changes, you are the one who has to fight for yourself even against your doctor. And sometimes you have to realize that you are probably more educated about what's happening to you than the doctor is.
Yeah.
You just need them to run the test for you and confirm what you already know.
Absolutely. And it is dehumanizing when your body is fighting against you. And like you had said, the hair and the infertility and the weight gain, and just feeling like you have the secret battle that no one else is, going to understand. And you see your friends who are like at the gym 3 or 4 days a week and they're getting these felt figures. And you're like, why am I even putting my time in there? Like, why am I going and feeling, uncomfortable and it's not working? And there's a lot of mental pieces to it and the mental health, right? Like the anxiety I have struggled with my whole life, which is partnered with, ADHD and PCOS. So I get it from both ends. And so people be like, you just need to calm down. Okay, like it doesn't, there's no
Doesn't
calm.
work that way.
It's not going to
Right.
but I felt my strongest probably before I had my son because I had taken kind of control of the PCOS. I was losing weight. I figured out what was working. The hormones were kind of in balance. Work life balance was really important too. If you can see the dog's face, he had to get in and get some lovin's, huh? Work life balance was in place. I was able to kind of keep my body at a homeostasis. The pandemic has thrown all of us out of loop, right? We're living off of cortisol levels right now. And not too long ago, people were saying, I'm just like, I'm exhausted. I can't get out of bed. I think I'm depressed. And yes, you could be, but also it's called pandemic burnout. Our body has lived on fight or flight for so long that our cortisol levels are depleted. And cortisol actually adds weight to your body, it adds stress to your body, it can create joint inflammation. Because it's our response to keep our adrenaline going. So if you're like, oh, I've been so good during the pandemic, like I haven't had any issues, and now you feel like you're just decimated, you're like everyone else right now because everyone else is feeling the same exact thing because we're now literally almost 365 days to when
Yeah.
things shut down. And so, many articles are coming out about work from home a year later and the toll it's taking on us or the advantages. And we're going to see a ton of mental health studies from this of what the pandemic has made and what it's going to create for us. Studies haven't even come out about how many children have been abused and neglected during this. We haven't seen elder abuse studies yet. We haven't seen the suicide rates. We haven't seen attempted suicide rates. We haven't seen the birth the birth rate. They're saying it decreased. I don't understand how that can possibly be. Part of the reason why I couldn't get into my doctor is that they had so many women that were pregnant that they couldn't fit them in to get their appointments. And my nurse was so funny. She said, oh my God, I'm so glad you're not pregnant. And I like looked at her. She goes, I literally have pregnant women all day. She's like, all day. She's like, I just want one woman who sits down and I don't have to do 25 checks on them. And I was like, okay, do you need to just sit for a second? And she's like, it is baby fever out this door. And she's like, I work in gynecology and obstetrician. I understand that. She goes, but literally it's just like 8 to 5, baby, 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 baby. And so I kind of chuckle at that because a study just came out and said that, this generation is having less children. It's expensive, cost. We have better understandings of how to use birth control, exhibit those natures. But it's gonna be interesting to see, who was a pandemic baby. We had the baby boomers. I think we're gonna have that for the next, not just this year, but I think for like the next 2 years. Once things start to open
Yes.
and people get to go out and see people,
Yeah.
whew, it's gonna be
Yeah.
crazy in those streets.
Yeah. They're going to be some of the toughest babies known to man. Trust me.
No, I agree. Well, Cassandra, it's been so amazing chatting with you. I thank you so much. Thank you for your passion on making sure that there's awareness and understanding around this, and making the tea. I'm going to be contacting you and getting, my order in to have my cup of tea. How can we find you? How can we shop you?
You can find me at www.myteasnob.com.
Awesome. And so this is Cassandra Spearman, founder of Tea Snob, PCOS advocate. Thank you for this amazing chat. It's just been fantastic today. I always love having these on Wednesday mornings. It's kind of like that hump day for the week, kind of builds my energy, keeps me happy, and I get to have kind of that good energy through the day and the week. So thank you for that so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Absolutely. Well, everyone stay healthy, stay safe, get outside, get some fresh air. You know me, I'm always talking about the self-care, even if it's for 5 minutes to go outside and just allow the sun to sit on you. Put your phone down. I'm telling you that this feels absolutely amazing right now. The pup is now asleep with his eyes closed on the warm cement, and he looks like he's in heaven. And so we're gonna eventually have a conversation about self-care with our pets too. But if you have an animal, let them outside today. Let them start getting that spring energy and smelling that newness and enjoy and remember, be selfish with your self-care. I'll see you guys next week. Bye,
Awesome.
Cassandra.
Bye.